Hello, it's Mr. Neil here, and in this video I'm going to talk about file handling and parallel arrays from the Software Design and Development Unit of Higher Computing Science. During this video I will explain and implement 1D arrays. By the end of this video you should be able to describe, exemplify and implement parallel one-dimensional arrays. You should be able to describe, exemplify and implement file handling of CSV and text files. And we'll use the knowledge that you may already have in relation to standard algorithms, looking at linear search, count occurrence, find minimum and find maximum using our 1D arrays. So far, the majority of the programs that you have written may have included an array. This could be either predefined within the program or populated by the user as they entered information. At Higher, we introduce the concept of parallel arrays. This is where a program utilises two or more arrays of linked information. Now, there is nothing formally linking the information between our arrays other than the developer knowing that the information is linked. For example, here we have two arrays. The first array is the names of train stations in Scotland, and the second is about visits. These visits are the number of people that have visited the associated stations. So Glasgow Central has had over 32 visits, Stranraer has had 56,000 visits, and so on to Musselburgh having 455,000 visits. There is nothing formally linking these two arrays together other than the developer knowing that they are linked. Moving on to look at file handling. Sequential files, for example text and comma separated value files, or CSV, hold data in a set sequence or order. This means that we can use the information from within these files and import them into parallel arrays within our program. When using files, there are four different operations we can perform. Open and create will open a pre-existing sequential file, or it will create a new one that we can then utilise. Once we've used our sequential file, it is important that we close it. When we open our creator file, we can then read information from it or write information to it. The method we use to read and write from our file will depend on what we want to do with the file. Let's now have a look at a practical example of file handling and parallel arrays together. Network Rail records the number of passengers that visit each train station in Scotland. This information is stored in a file called station.csv. And we can see here an exemplar of that station. We've got the station code, the station name, the local authority that that station is within, who operates that station, and the passenger number. We're going to create a program that will produce a file listing all the stations in our local authority. So that could be Stirling, Midlothian, City of Glasgow, Highlands and Islands, whatever your local authority is. So let's dive into REPL where we'll show how to do this in Python. Here we are in REPL with a really simple program at the moment. We've got a function here called import file to parallel array, and at the moment all our program does is call this empty function. This function is where we're going to write the code that will import the contents of stations.csv and add it into our parallel arrays. So if we have a look at stations.csv, we can see we've got the different pieces of information about each station, and it is separated by a comma, because this file is a comma separated value file. If this was a text file, these could be commas, or they could also be any other value that you get on the keyboard. Let's return to our main program. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create the arrays that are going to store each of the pieces of information about the station. And we know from the slide deck that we are storing the station name, the station code, the local authority, the operator and visits. And at the moment I'm just creating these as empty arrays. We're not specifying a length because I don't know how many stations there are, and we're not specifying a data type because I don't know what type of data we're expecting. Now we're ready to start working with the file. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to open the file. And to open the file we're going to use the predefined function open. And open requires two values. The first value that it requires is the name of the file. The second value that the function needs is the method that we are opening the file in. In this case, we are opening the file in read mode because we want to read it into our program. Now that we've opened the file, the next thing we need to do is to read the file. And to read the file, we are going to use the function read. So we're taking the file, we're reading it in, and we're putting the contents of the file in the variable file content. Once we have read the file in, we are finished with the file. So we're actually now going to close it by saying file.close. So let's have a look at the content that our program has brought in from the file. So when I click run, we get a variable that contains all of the stations within Scotland. But what we could really be doing is splitting each station into a different value so we can use it. And to do that, we're going to add to the end of our file.read.splitlines. When we click run, we now get something that doesn't look as pretty, because each station now takes up an index position within an array called file content. We need to take each aspect about the station and split it up. So the station codes are all together in an array, the station names are all together in an array, and in order to do that, we are going to need a loop. And this loop is going to go through our new file content array. And we're going to split up each line, and we're going to get line parts. So line part, we are going to split the line, and we're going to split the line on the comma, because that's the delimiter that we are using. And if I now print line part and run it, we can see that each line is now an array. And the first part is the code, the second is the station name, then the local authority, then the operator, and then the number. So we need to take all these codes and put them into the station code array, and so on. And to do that, we're going to call upon the array, and we're going to use in Python the append method. So in this case, I want to append the first value of the line part. And then for station name, I want to append the second part. For local authority, I want to append the third part, and operator, the fourth part. And lastly, for visits, I want to append the last part. Now the last value here is a number, so we want to make sure it is stored as a number, so we're going to convert this to an integer. So let's see what happens when I print the station name and the visits array. There we have an array that contains the name of every station in Scotland, and an array that contains all the visits for every station in Scotland. We then need to return each of our 5 arrays to the main program. So we add in our return statement, and we make sure that our function in the main program has somewhere to store these values. So we've taken these values and we've added them into arrays. The next step is we need to find all stations within a specified local authority. So in order to do that, we're going to create a new function, and this function is going to be called find station. And in order for find station to work, we're going to give it the station name array, the local authority array, and in this case we're going to look for all train stations in Midlothian. So this is essentially a linear search. We're looking for all stations within Midlothian. So this is my pre-typed in function that will do this. And if I click run on this, I'm told that the stations in Midlothian are S-Bank, Gorebridge, Newton Grange and Shawfair. Now we don't want the output to appear in the console. We want to create a file and the information to go in a file. So to create a file, we go file equals open. We then need to give a file a name. So in this case, we're going to go to council, and we're going to concatenate that with stations.txt. We need to specify whether it's going to be a text file or a CSV. And then we need to specify the mode that we're going to open it in. In this case, we're going to open it in write mode. And at the end of my linear search, I'm going to go file.close. So instead of printing, we want to write this information to the file. So we're going to say file.write. And then again, file.write. So when I now run the program, there is no output here, but we have got a new file. And if I open that up, we've got the 4 stations listed. Not very usable, this file. So what we're going to go to do is go back to our program, and on the end of our write statement, we are going to add in the special character, which is a new line character, which is /n. And when I click run again, no output here. My file has got the 4 stations in Midlothian. Now in Python, as well as being able to open the file in write mode, I can also open the file in append mode. And what that will do is take the contents that we want to write to the file and add it to the end of the file. So if I run it again, we will get the 4 stations again. If I run it again, I'll get the 4 stations added in again. Let's, just to see if it works with other local authorities, let's change Midlothian for Stirling, run the program, and we now get a file called Stirling Stations, and we can see all the stations located in Stirling. In this video, I've taken you through parallel arrays and file handling of sequential files. What I encourage you to do now is have a go at implementing some practical tasks that utilise these skills.